The prosecution rested its case on November 16th. 3 days later, the defense rested their case. Bugliosi remembered the shock. Nearly everyone in the courtroom was caught completely off guard. Even Judge Older seemed too stunned to speak. The defense obviously, but unexpectedly, had decided to avoid cross-examination and to rely on the argument that we hadn't proved the guilt of Manson and his co-defendants beyond a reasonable doubt. But this was clearly not Manson's plan, and he was upset with the defense attorneys. He attempted to take control of the courtroom, reminding his co-defendants and their legal teams who was in charge, and then he stood and delivered his infamous speech to the court. Among the things Manson said that day, "You write things about my mother in the newspaper that hasn't got anything to do with anything in particular. You invent stories. If you put me in the penitentiary, that means nothing, because you kicked me out of the last one. I didn't ask to get released. I liked it in there. These children that come at you with knives, they are your children. You taught them. I just tried to help them stand up. It is not my responsibility. It is your responsibility. It is the responsibility you have towards your own children, who you are neglecting, and then you want to put the blame on me again and again and again. You eat meat with your teeth and you kill things that are better than you. You make your children what they are. I am just a reflection of every one of you. You just sell those newspapers for public opinion, just like you are all hung on public opinion, and none of you have any idea what you are doing. You are just doing what you are doing for the money, for a little bit of attention from someone. You haven't got long before you are all going to kill yourselves, because you are all crazy. You should all turn around and face your children, and start following them and listening to them. I don't care anything about any of you, and I don't care what you do. In my mind, I live forever." Now let's be frank. Charles Manson was right. To believe that Charlie was simply crazy is to ignore a vital part of the Manson family story. There was truth to his wisdom, and there was a need for a Charles Manson. Manson's followers might have been misled, manipulated, but he didn't lie to them about the most important things. He lied to us, to the courts, the police, but his family didn't fault him for that. We deserved to be lied to, because we failed to listen to his words. I'm not saying that we should have obeyed a group of drug-addled hippies, but I am saying that we probably should at least have listened carefully to them, because they, and Manson himself, were not wrong. Charlie was right that, while the press doesn't invent stories, it often conflates them for ratings. It did mean nothing to put Manson back in the pen. Manson's children were our children. We did pass on the bad parts of ourselves to them. We did teach them to kill, and then threw them away without thought to who they might turn toward or against. We did blame Manson for our own neglect of our children. We are obsessed with fame and attention as much as Charlie. We are all crazy. We should start listening to the children. Manson did reflect society back to itself. Those kids were homeless, fatherless, adrift, and Charlie tried to show them as best he could how to not be weak. And, in many ways, Charles Manson will live forever. There was one more incident after the case wrapped. Defense attorney Ronald Hughes went missing on November 30th. He had gone camping and did not return. Foul play was suspected. Another attorney was assigned to represent Leslie in Hughes' absence. On December 2nd, Bruce and Brenda turned themselves in. Davis later told a parole board, "That was my first good decision in a long time. I suppose my first step toward rehabilitation. I didn't realize the implications of it. I just knew that I couldn't live on the run. being an outlaw is not as romantic as it's cracked up to be. It certainly wasn't for me. By mid-December, Ruth Ann was 9 months pregnant. She had evaded the authorities in California for poisoning Barbara Hoyt. Still, she was indicted, along with Squeaky, Gypsy, Clem, and Dennis Rice, on December 18th. Sentenced to 90 days in jail, Ruth Ann instead fled to the Midwest where her mother was living and went into hiding. Gypsy was in jail on the Hoyt poisoning charges when she gave birth January 5th to her son Phoenix. Steve Grogan is the father of her son. On January 25th, Charles Manson, Susan Atkins, Patricia Krenwinkel, and Leslie Van Houten were convicted of first-degree murder. The jury deliberated for nearly 43 hours. Bugliosi remembered, "I couldn't conceive of the jury coming back with a not guilty verdict, but I did fear a hung jury. One juror, out of fear because they all knew the Manson family was still on the streets, could have balked. When the jury came in, I watched Manson. His hands were trembling. He'd convinced the family members that death was beautiful. But that was all BS." Gary Fleischman added, "Was there enough proof to convict Manson? Legally, I think it's pretty questionable. Morally, I have no doubt that he's guilty. Not that it mattered. Vince was trying the devil incarnate, and what jury is not going to convict the devil?" Sentencing was scheduled for that March. As part of the sentencing process, each of the female defendants took the stand in their own defense and at Charlie's orders. They did everything they could to take the blame and exonerate Manson. Susan later explained, "Unfortunately, in our legal system, if you choose to commit suicide on the stand, there's nothing anyone can do to stop you." On March 29th, Ronald Hughes was found dead. 2 fishermen in Ventura County stumbled upon the bloated body of the attorney wedged between boulders beside a river near where he'd gone camping the past November. Squeaky and others alluded that the defense attorney was yet another murder at their hands. While foul play could not be ruled out, it does appear that Hughes' death was a sad, strange accident. Fleischman said, "How many times do you hear of a defense lawyer getting killed in the middle of a case? I was living in a 2-story apartment in Beverly Hills, and I had a couple of these kids, Linda's husband Bob and a guy named Charlie Melton, sleeping on my doorstep. Bob and Charlie were really just warm bodies. They were just eating my food and smoking my dope. But they lived with me for several months. I wanted someone there if Squeaky Fromm tried to sneak in and slit my throat." That same day Hughes' body was found, in the Los Angeles Superior Court, Charlie, Sadie, Katie, and Leslie stood before the judge to receive their sentencing for the murders of Stephen Parent, Jay Sebring, Abigail Folger, Wojtek Frykowski, Sharon Tate, and Rosemary and Lino LaBianca. 3 weeks earlier, Manson had shaved his head and transformed the X he carved earlier into a sloppy swastika. On the day of their sentencing, Charlie and his co-defendants were brought into the courtroom and everyone gasped. Atkins, Krenwinkel, and Van Houten had also shaved their heads. They stood as the jury stated that they'd each been sentenced to death. "You have just judged yourselves. Better lock your doors and watch your own kids. Your whole system is a game. You blind, stupid people. Your children will turn against you."